It always does that. All right. I got to put myself in the right place. Welcome, everybody, to the latest live interview. We do these live chats with other content creators fairly regularly. We did them late last year, as you recall, with Reynolds Reviews and Universal Shabby Reviews. A lot of channels with the name Reviews at the end. This particular channel, or a podcast, I should say, but you guys have a YouTube channel. You guys have rapidly over the last 2 years, whatever it's been, have become really close friends of mine on social media. You guys do copious amounts of reviews, but it's not in your name. It's Movie Oubliette. So everybody give a warm welcome to Conrad and Dan, or, I did the movie poster thing. Dan and Conrad from Movie Oubliette. Thanks for joining us. I know you guys are geographically... So, Dan, you're in Melbourne, Australia. Conrad, you're in Cambridge, UK. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. So we're literally spanning most of the... so thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate you both being here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for asking us.
Yeah, and Gen X Toys Geek Jody already has a super chat. He says, can't make the stream, but here's a quick good old time just cuz. Thank you, Jody. Appreciate that. So I'm just going to jump right into it. So everybody who doesn't know, you guys both co-host together a podcast, Movie Oubliette, where you find sometimes obscure, sometimes not that obscure, but maybe ones people aren't thinking about anymore. Stallone in Daylight, whatever. That's my random example of movies we saw, but we don't remember seeing. And you decide whether or not they should stay forgotten or whether they should be pulled out of said oubliette and be remembered. And I want to take the Wayback Machine for both of you guys before we talk about that too, because you guys are intellectual powerhouses when it comes to talking about movies, but you do it in a fun way. You do it in a humorous way. I love listening to every episode. Fully produced. You guys do your own music. You guys do your own soundscapes and everything like that. You create these little scenes. It's really, really innovative stuff. I want Conrad and Dan, the original OG versions, before you guys knew each other, and before you, back when you guys were young, like you're real young. And tell me, you guys get to pick who goes first. What was like the first movie you saw, and when did you realize you were into movies? And then why do you think you were so into movies at a young age? Or maybe you weren't, I don't know.
Well, should I go first, Dan?
I think you should go first, yes.
Yeah, my childhood was first chronologically by a number of years. So, I mean, my story is so similar to a lot of people's in our generation, which is the first and most formative and strongest memory I have of seeing a movie is Star Wars, which, I don't know, it just excited me in ways and opened me up to the idea of storytelling and creating completely new worlds in cinema. And I caught it on TV, I seem to remember, and I recorded it on my brand new VHS machine.
Nice.
And I used to watch that home recorded tape on Saturday morning every week for years. So as a result, I mean, don't test me, but at one point, certainly, I used to know every single line of dialogue in Star Wars.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up Star Wars, to coin a phrase.
What about you, Dan?
I can't recall the first movie I ever watched. I don't know. Cartoons, probably. Samurai Pizza Cat from the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe my earliest memory of watching anything. I think the first movie I ever saw at the cinema was Home Alone. It was either Home Alone or Fern Tree Gully. One of those two movies.
Fern Gully.
Yeah. Sorry, Fern Gully. Yeah.
Apologize for that. Gosh, that's a criminal.
There actually is a place in Victoria in Australia called Fern Tree Gully, so I think I'm mixing them all up. But yeah, I don't know. I never really was that into movies growing up as a kid. I was just like any other normal kid, just watching your average amount of movies. and VHS and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I think I got into movies much later in life.
It's fascinating to me when people figure out that they love cinema, if they ever do, because it doesn't always happen in childhood. Like a lot of kids in my generation and Conrad were pretty much on par as far as our age. We have the Star Wars story. We grew up Star Wars. And then when I meet people who are just a few years younger than me, who then grew up more in the latter half of the 80s and into the 90s, their world is cinematically is completely different. I often hear things like Jurassic Park or Terminator 2, things like that. And I wonder what that would be like if my story wasn't, oh yeah, I saw Darth Vader for the first time. If it was, no, I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger try and stop like a glue monster, and he was like, "Come with me if you want to live." Like that would be a very different perspective on cinema and pop culture. But I'm getting away from myself. So we're now young Dan, young Conrad. You're coming up through the 90s and into the 2000s. The internet has finally taken off. How did you guys meet? How did you guys get connected? How did that happen?
So this is the hit record story. So Joseph Gordon-Levitt, actor, producer, writer, director, he formed an online collaboration community stroke production house, online production house at one point. It's sort of changed in terms of what its goal is over the years, but it was a production house for a while. And I joined it. I think technically, did I join it before you did, Dan?
I think technically, yeah.
But I wasn't active. I think you were active before, because I just didn't get it. For years, I didn't understand exactly what it was. Was it like SoundCloud, where you just pushed stuff in there and waited for people to adore you? Or and it wasn't until I think it was the second season of Hit Record on TV, which was the TV show that we did, that I suddenly realized that you were supposed to take things that other people submitted and remix them, build on them, and collaborate with other people and contribute to projects together. And once that idea clicked, then I made a video called My New Year's Resolution, which was me talking about the fact that I understood what this thing was, and that it had changed my life for a year, because I made a New Year's resolution that I'd fully commit to collaborating, and I ended up doing all these different projects. I did voiceovers for animations, I did music, I did remixing, I contributed all kinds of things. And one of the people who was the most welcoming and the most encouraging and who always gave good advice was Mr. Dan here, or Tinderlocks, as I knew him then.
That's awesome.
Yeah, nothing to do with Tinder, the app, by the way. And this is, when you're online, you have just a handful of usernames that you just kind of circulate through, and that's just one of them that I had since I was, I don't know, 16 or something. I think it was a band name idea that I had, because I used to be into sort of guitar and wanting to be in a band, and go in that direction of live music and we're going to be famous rock stars, but that never ended and eventuated into anything, of course. But meeting Conrad on Hit Record, the sort of production company community started by Joseph Gordon-Levitt and his passed away brother. It was I joined around Hit Record on TV season 2. And I kind of got it a little bit faster than Conrad did. So after about a month, I was like, this place is pretty amazing. And I first started on the site just doing sound design stuff. So just finding whatever animation I could find and just putting sounds to it, because that was what I had studied. I did audio engineering, wanted to get into post-production with film and sound design. So that's how I started. But then I found there's music here as well, and all sorts of other things. So it definitely pushes you to do things that you didn't know you could do. But it has changed a lot, and it's a very different place now. Like if you go to the Hit Record site now, it's very different. But I have had a lot of amazing things happen from Hit Record. Like I got to go to LA for like 4 days to do a music video with Logic, and
wow.
you know, I mean, there's some really cool stuff. I mean, I was jet lagged the entire time and feeling sleepy in the afternoon every day and awake at midnight. But you know, it was an interesting and fun time.
I'm sorry that you had to be in LA for 4 days. I swear they have a trademarked proprietary lens filter so that every time they shoot a movie in Los Angeles, it makes it look amazing. But then when you're actually there, you're like, oh, it's a hellscape.
It was unseasonably cold as well when we were there. I thought, what is this? I thought LA was sunny and hot and, you know, shorts and t-shirt weather, but it was freezing and raining. So that was
it's
different.
a dystopian nightmare that is clad in plastic and stucco, and they hope that the illusion just holds up for another decade.
Sure.
Yeah. Meanwhile, everybody's like rotten and miserable. It's like that. It's like the only cool moment in Multiverse of Madness where he's standing in that orchard with Wanda, and suddenly she's like, and it suddenly looks like this horrible place. It's like you think LA is the orchard, and then suddenly somebody goes, and it's like, oh, it's horrible. I gotta get out of here. Yeah, it's just both of you guys have serious skills not only in soundscaping but also in music composition, and that brings so much to every Movie Oubliette episode because you guys are able to create original music for the interstitials and the transitions, and you've taken movie commentary and you've made it your show actually reminds me of the way things used to be made, as far as we've taken care to I don't know if I'm going to sound stupid or smart saying this, but every episode of Movie Oubliette, when it starts, it has that wonderful intro jingle, you know, the kind of to get you in the mood, and you guys introduce yourselves, you know, at the beginning of every episode, and it creates this kind of, it's not retro, because retro's overdone. I don't mean nostalgia retro, but you have picked up on a format that has been ignored for a long time with radio shows. You guys have basically created a 21st century radio show, but you're using old lessons to make it really pop and make it really fun to listen to each one. When you guys were on Hit Record, you connected over these kinds of skills. But how did you guys figure out that you two were both way into movies to the point that you said, we want to start a podcast about movies and just talking about them, and we're gonna ratchet it up to this level of production quality? How did that conversation happen?
I can't remember, to be honest. I mean, I know that when we were on Hit Record, one of the things, I mean, there were many things that frustrated us there sometimes, and one of them was that we wish that we could do more stuff that actually got out there, that was distributed and promoted. And one of the projects we worked on with a whole host of incredibly talented people was a podcast called Hit Record on Your Radio, which had that sort of old-time radio show vibe, but with a modern twist and with excellent production value throughout because of the contributions of so many incredibly talented people. And I, you know, podcasts were booming, and I kept saying, we should do podcasts. We should do podcasts, and and there didn't seem to be a lot of interest in exploring that. Yeah, I think I did finally just send a message to Dan and say we should do a podcast. And I think you just answered straight away, Dan. Yeah, we should.
Yeah, I think we had numerous conversations through like Messenger about movies, and especially more obscure movies. I, for some reason, have a love of terrible movies. I just keep watching them. I don't know why. And it's gotten to the point where I'm not even unironic about it anymore. It's not like, oh, this is so bad. Oh, ha, 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 ha. I actually enjoy how bad it is now. I don't know why. But yeah, I think we just kind of floated the idea, and then we just decided to do it. And what Conrad mentioned with Hit Record on Your Radio, that was definitely one of the first sort of instances where I dipped my feet into podcasting and realized, hey, this is like really fun. And also I could use my skills of sound design to, create these like little soundscapes and environments with just sound. And it was, a lot of fun. And I mean, funnily enough as well, you mentioned radio dramas. Like I grew up listening to a lot of radio as a kid. And for 2 years growing up, we didn't have a TV. So the only movies I saw were at the cinema, or that was it actually. So I listened to a lot of radio dramas, and I guess that has continued on to adulthood. I still enjoy listening to that audio format, and it's different as well. I mean, podcasting is so different to a lot of other mediums because it is long form entertainment. It's not short 10-second TikToks or like Instagram reels or anything. It's hour long pieces of entertainment that you just have to sit down and listen to. It's a different way of, I don't know, consuming media, I guess.
The way that I think what I appreciate the most about a really well done podcast is, and you guys are definitely in that category, is it's something where you're not dependent on a visual to absorb it. And so you can, in this busy world we live in, when you're trying to feed 5 cats or you're trying to get the laundry switched over, you can still have the podcast playing off your phone in the back pocket, and you're still able to hear everything and you're not missing a single beat. Now, I don't want that to take away from what we'll bring up in a little bit, which is, of course, the Movie Oubliette YouTube channel as well, which does just as amazing work on your videos as far as production value goes as you do on your main podcast show. But for anybody who's interested, the Movie Oubliette website link is in the description, and it's on all major podcast apps. I listen to it through Podbean. That's the app on my phone that I listen to you guys through. But you guys have taken movie commentary beyond just creating a radio show flavor. The way that I've sort of processed it through listening to 30, 40 episodes now, 50 maybe. I can't remember how many episodes you got, but I've listened to a ton of them. Ewoks: A Battle for Endor being one of my favorites. You guys you don't do the and then this happened and then this happened and then this happened. You guys have found a format where, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know it's a long-winded question, but you jump into the middle of the action with your reviews. Like you go down into the Oubliette, and by the way, I'm jealous that Melinda got to go into the Oubliette. So anyway, you go down into the Oubliette and you bring out the film, but you don't just say, so the film opens with this. You kind of give sort of a premise statement about a primer of what the film is about. You kind of read the sort of treatment, or it's not treatment. What do they call that in Hollywood? It's not the treatment. It's the premise statement, I guess. And then you start picking out themes and areas to talk about. And how did you guys arrive at doing that? Because so many movie reviews are, so then this happened and that was weird, and then this girl showed up, and I mean that plot point didn't make any sense at all. You guys don't do that. How did you arrive at that format?
Yeah, I think if I remember rightly, we listened to a lot of podcasts, and Dan and I talked a lot about what we liked and what we didn't like. Mm-hmm. Just for ourselves. They always say with a podcast that you should do something that you want to listen to, so that you're not trying to guess what other people, because you can never guess what other people want, but just do something that at least you would connect to, and then see if that resonates with other people. And for me, yeah, I definitely did not want us to be the the three bros that put the microphone in the middle of a table and just recount a film beat per beat and then just talk about their reaction to it.
Right.
So just sort of experiential, like this happened and I thought, wow. And I just think, well, what am I getting from that? I mean, I suppose it's sort of nice, part of the podcasting experience is sort of feeling as though you are, sharing in overhearing a conversation in a pub or something, and you're sort of vicariously experiencing this friendship or whatever. That's great. But for me, I wanted substance. I want you to pull threads together and start talking about how the film was made, how it resonates, culturally, how it resonates in terms of the history of cinema. What's groundbreaking about it? What are the themes? What's interesting about the way it's presenting its story? That's the sort of stuff that interests me, because I studied film at university in the same way that you study literature. So not how to make them, but just sort of textual analysis. So I'm always textual analysis. And that's what fascinates me about it. So, I mean, Dan and I just talked about it, and we came up with this outline, this Bible for the show. And yeah, just quickly picked out what we thought we would enjoy doing. And yeah, that's probably why we ended up the way we ended up.
Well, oh, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I was going to say we've kind of got three things that we try to achieve with the podcast. The first thing is trying to give the listener, like, sort of not really educate them, but like they come away from each episode learning something. Wow, I didn't know this about film, or this film in particular. We try to give a lot of information that you would not normally hear about in a normal review. The second thing we try to do is also we try to cover all bases, because there's a lot of parts of cinema that people just don't talk about. People don't generally talk about the score unless, Hans Zimmer isn't involved. So music and sound and lighting, other aspects of film that are equally as important as a director and an actor. So covering all aspects of film. And the third thing is third thing. What was the third thing? I can't remember. What was the third thing? There was definitely a third thing.
It's okay. Take your time.
No, I can't remember. I'll come back. I'll come back.
While you think about it, I mean, the way I pitch it to guests when I'm trying to get like celebrity guests to join the show, I always say my elevator pitch is we aim to be informal but informative. And I think one of the reasons why we get as many guests as we do, I mean, considering our sort of audience size, which is not huge, we get some great, pretty amazing guests.
Yeah.
And it's because they listen to the show and they can tell that we're going to be well researched. We're going to care about the work they've done.
Right.
And we want to have an intelligent conversation with them. But we also want to have fun while we're doing it.
Sure.
So, and some of the parts of the show that are, Dan injected the fun into the show, because I had this whole textual analysis. Let's go through these themes. And as Dan says, give people that research, because another thing that really bugs me when I listen to some podcasts is you'll have, some 20-year-old say, oh yeah, Michael Biehn, I think I've seen him in another movie, but I can't remember what. And I just sit there and think, couldn't you have just Googled it before the show started?
Right. Yeah.
Just find out something, because now I'm worried about it and I want to Google it. I shouldn't have to do your work for you. So come prepared.
Exactly.
It's not sorry, Conrad, go ahead.
No, just come prepared and but give people a good time. And Dan brought the good time because the Mobley Awards was Dan's idea. And so after you get the substance, all of a sudden you get this solid 20 minutes of us just being really silly, but still respecting the film, but having a little bit of fun with it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I just realized the third thing I was talking about. So we try to sort of look at all films sort of on equal ground, I guess. Like, we're not just trashing films just because they're terrible. Like, we try to find anything that's good in any film, or anything that's bad in supposedly good films. So it's more of an open discussion rather than this movie sucks and this movie's great.
Yeah,
you
both are, for everybody who's not familiar, they are not a podcast version of Mystery Science Theater. They are deep diving into each film and studying it in all aspects. I just listened to the latest episode, the Paul Freeman horror film that you guys watched. It starts with an S. I can't remember the name of it.
The Sender.
The Sender. Yes. Fascinating movie. I'm going to seek out a copy and find it and watch it, because you guys said it came out in 82, 83, around the same time as E.T. And that was a big seminal year for a lot of movies, but other movies like this movie and The Thing and other films, they got lost in this shuffle of syrup that kind of came out that overrode. And I was fascinated to listen to you guys talk about this movie I'd never heard of before. And you both admitted that while the director didn't go on to great aplomb, this particular movie is uniformly excellent and intriguing and well conceived. And so, no, for everyone listening, Movie Oubliette is not Mystery Science Theater. It's a completely different, unique experience. I have my next question, but I'm going to just burn through some of these super chats real quick. Chazilla, thank you so much for the super chat, and thank you for being here. And whoa, it jumped on me, because that's what StreamYard does. Philip, thank you so much. He says, cheers, gentlemen. And then we have Action Pop Dad. Thank you for the £2. He says, I love listening to these guys at work. Yeah, they are great. And then Chazilla, thank you for the second super chat. He says, I love the Oubliette format. They paint such a vivid picture. Their style is as unique and intriguing as the movies they pick. I've learned so much. Keep them coming. Your boy, Wicked Person is here. He says, the segments with sound design, a song for each one are genius. Other podcasts seem rambly and freeform by comparison.
Yeah. That's another thing, is the editing. We keep it tight. We try to aim for about, I think our sweet spot is like an hour 6. Sometimes we get there, sometimes we're a little bit long, but we don't just ramble and then when we run out of things to say stop, we keep it tight and structured, and there's a lot of work goes into moving things around and getting subjects together so that it tells a story. But that's kind of, I love doing that. That's part of the whole fun of it for me, that if you're it's sort of like making a film. If you're going to commit something to a recorded medium rather than live is all about improvisation and what happens at in the moment. But if you're going to create something that's recorded, the fun thing with that is seeing exactly how perfect you can make it. And I love doing that.
And also the fact that your show, I guess because of the work you did prior to starting your podcast, you wouldn't really be able to tell. I know you both probably can tell one of your more recent episodes from a production standpoint versus your original.
The first ones are bad.
Well, you might think so, but you started with you guys shot for the moon and fell into the stars like everybody should, like you're saying. And then you found your route. Or is it shoot for the stars and land on the moon? Or is it shoot for the moon and land in the stars? I don't remember what that phrase is, but you know what I mean. You guys set a high bar for yourselves early on, so that by and large, your library is really solid from beginning to end. Like there are a lot of channels and podcasts where the very first year of episodes sounds like they were recorded in a public bathroom, or they've literally got trash bags, as a backdrop, for the first. You guys don't have that. You don't, it's solid from the very beginning, which is great.
the way it sounds is all this man over here. I mean, sound designer by trade, and so the reason he makes even my sometimes very ropey recordings sound as luscious as they do is because he's a genius.
I would say I was a genius. I mean, it's definitely gone through. It progressed. Like when we first started, I think the Movie Awards was like a last minute idea that I came up with. Like, oh, we should do this maybe, and it's just continued on since day one. And then there's a lot of things like before the Movie Awards didn't have announcements, and now we have announcements for each category. Like there's a lot of different things that have progressed, and I've gone through 3 different microphones in that time. I've moved house. Conrad's moved house. I used to record in the corner of my bedroom with like a blanket over a mic stand. Like I think for a while my computer wasn't sort of up to date, so I was like recording on my phone. I mean, the Skype call was on my phone, but I was still recording.
Was the blanket over you as well?
No, not over me.
That's too bad.
I was kind of like in a corner with a blanket over a mic, a music stand, and
yeah. I thought
I remember. I was going to say, I remember when we used to be recording in your bedroom, because when we had like a guest and it was going on like late at night, I think your wife wasn't best pleased that she couldn't go to bed.
Yeah,
until we stopped recording.
Yeah. And there were times when I used to record on my phone kept falling off the music stand, and I would just disappear.
I was just visualizing the idea that you had rigged up a kind of sound dampening tent, and if anybody had walked into the room, they'd have seen this weird misshapen ghost just kind of in the room. And
yeah, just like talking.
Yeah. I guess my next question about this, because I have two ways I can go, and I don't want to necessarily do the convention question. What's your favorite? So I'm going to hold off on that for a second, although I do have that question. You both don't shy away from, because you're watching films that are very old sometimes, like you don't limit yourself to films from the last 5 years. You guys did the Conquest of Space, which was 1954, 55, something like that. You went way back. But with each one of these movies, you take time within your reviews to put it in its context, its time and place, sociopolitically, I guess, if it warrants it. Obviously, Ewoks: The Battle for Endor doesn't really warrant that, but in certain instances, it does. What do you guys think about that? Because it's a big discussion now that we are in a post modern world where we have over 100 years of cinema. How do you, as cinephiles, is that the way you pronounce it? Cinephiles? How do you both personally approach older content? Do you allow for a lot of it to sort of be in its time and place, and then you take that into account? Or do you always look at it through the lens of now and impose those judgments on it? How do you balance that in your commentary?
I think we definitely take into account when the time it was from, especially with Conquest of Space. I mean, it's 1955, pre anyone going into space.
Right.
Not even,
right.
No human had been to space at the time. So, and also it's so before any of the other sci-fis, the sort of renowned sci-fis. So of course we take that into account. But then we often find things about older films that are like, wow, I can't believe they did that back then.
Right.
Like that's really progressive or modern. Like that ages really well.
Yeah. You guys kind of got in my head. One of my favorite movies is The Mark of Zorro with Tyrone Power. And for a long, long time, I don't know why, but for like 200 viewings of it throughout my whole life, I used to just watch the chase with the horse. There's a part where he's getting away at night and they're all chasing him and he's on horseback, and black and white film. And he gets to a bridge over a river, and he knows he's not going to be able to outrun them. The only way he's going to be able to get away is if he jumps the horse off the bridge into the river, and then they can't follow him, right? I had never noticed I don't know why. It was after I started watching or listening to you guys. I was watching it one day, and I went to film school. Okay, like I went to film school to learn how to make films and all that kind of stuff. But people inspire others, and I was watching it, and Melinda will tell you the story. I sat up and I paused it, and I went, "Wait a second," and I said, "I'm 44 years old, and I'm just noticing after 40 years of watching this movie, that's a special effect. That transitions from a real horse to a not real horse in a 1940s movie, black and white, and it's imperceptible. Like I literally had to, I don't know, something in my brain flipped. And I was fascinated by, and it brought me back to all the stuff that you guys talk about when you encounter something like that in an older film, where you go, it's amazing that they pulled that off back then. You know, you were talking about the camera that they used in the Sender film, where they created a periscope camera to go under the water. And I love older movies, but I love the fact that your show tries to impart appreciation for older craftsmanship. Is it craftspersonship now? I don't know. Anyway, the point is that you guys really delve into that. Is that something that's always fascinated you?
It has me. I mean, half of the books I have on my shelf are like, I've got the books about the history of industrial light and magic, and I've always been fascinated by the techniques of filmmaking, and particularly now. I mean, I suppose computer graphics are interesting because there are all kinds of different techniques there, but it's just a bunch of guys underpaid, being treated very badly, rotoscoping stuff and putting animated bits over the top. It to me, it's not as interesting as the sort of things that you used to have to do to make movies, and often doesn't hold up as well.
It doesn't.
So you watch a movie like The Sender, and because all of it was done in camera, practically in front, and a lot of it is sleight of hand and choice of angles and choice of lighting and so on, you watch it, it's going for an emotional effect as well. It's very deliberately designed to achieve a storytelling or an emotional effect on the audience, like that shot in The Sender, where the camera starts way up high, and just this poor lonely figure on a beach, and follows him as he walks into the water with rocks in his pockets, and then goes under the water, and his horrified face goes past the camera, and you think, that's just an incredible shot for 1982. How did they do it? Because it achieves such a great effect, and it must have been so hard that I just love delving into that stuff and talking about it with Dan, and seeing the reactions from our listeners as well.
Yeah, the point that you just brought up about I just lost my train of thought. I literally had it, and then I lost it because I got old right now. Like, okay, wow, that my days of interviewing people are fast approaching being over. I'll come back to that in a minute. Apparently, let's go to the favorite question. So, I know this is very pat, but I think people want to know. First, let's get through some super chats. Eddie Coulter, thank you for the super chat. He says, Movie Oubliette are so cool. They even gave me a private live stream. Keep up the
excellent work. We did, Eddie. Yeah, was... We went live during Iconicon just to do, we said we were going to do those end of day roundups just for patrons. So we did one of those, and obviously because Dan and I, our time zone is just completely out of whack with most of our audience in the US. But Eddie was around, and Eddie joined us, so he was there alone. It's fun.
I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No.
I just remembered what I was going to say. What I was going to say. My brain was like, I need to work now. I follow the digital bits and have for 20 years, because one of my great loves in film is film restoration, and following the stories of them saving these movies and the technology they use to do that. I think that's where I like computer technology more than anything else, less so with the effects and more so with the restoration preservation side that it's allowed for. But in the process, what I learned is that recently the digital bits did a 4K review of Multiverse of Madness. God, I did not intend for this movie to come up twice in this interview. But there was this little breakout moment there where you just mentioned, Conrad, about how the practical craftsmanship holds up better over time than a lot of the digital stuff they lean on now. And it couldn't be more true. They made this little offhanded comment where they said, there's no, okay, sorry, my what do you call it? My camera is doing something very weird right now. I don't know why.
Oh, you look fine to us.
Okay, great. I just don't know if it's going to shut off because it's like blinking at me now, and it's like, hey, if I go dark on the camera, you'll still be able to hear me, and I'll fix it somehow. But what they said was, this thing was shot in 4K digital, blah 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 blah. But as is traditional for most digital workflows with a lot of special effects, traditionally in Hollywood since I think the mid 2000s or late 2000s, the late aughts or naughties as you like to call them, they output everything at a 2K workflow. So if it's the 35 millimeter for live action and then the digital effects are put on it, they end up making all of that 2K.
Yeah.
They then said, well, this was done in 4K. They said natively and then output to 4K because technology's gotten better. They said, but we can't tell a difference. Read their review and you'll see them say, we can't really tell a difference between a 2K upscale of a special effects movie onto 4K and this native 4K. And I'm like, ooh, that's... Whereas when you watch something like Blade Runner on 4K or you watch Lawrence of Arabia or every bit of the detail just boom comes out of that grain, that 35 millimeter grain. So you're absolutely right. I
remember I was listening to there's a podcast that I love. I won't name it. There's a podcast I love with a few reviewers on there, and there's that one of them is just, I mean, he's young, but I mean, he's incredibly stupid. And he said something along the lines of, they were talking about, Criterion getting into the 4K disc business. And his comment was, oh, wow, but they deal with such old movies. Did they even have 4K back then? And I'm thinking, baby.
I just realized my camera's battery. I didn't flick on the power strip. Stand by. Tell a dirty limerick or something. I'm just going to flick that switch.
I'll carry on trashing this poor kid. But it just the Criterion collection. They didn't even have 4K back then. It's like most of the Marvel movies, most of the things you're watching in theaters now have been finished in 2K. The effects have been done in 2K, and because most of the shots are effects shots in some way or another, they're all 2K. And if you want a really good image, you're going to have to go back to a film that was shot pre-Phantom Menace, because it was shot on film, and film holds between 6 and 8K of information depending on the film stock. And if it's in 65 or IMAX, then the sky's the limit, which is why all these 4K remasters of, classic films from the 90s and the 80s just look stunning as long as they've been done well.
Right.
Whereas I think the Phantom Menace was only because it was one of the first times they used a digital camera for a few scenes. I think it was finished at Blu-ray definition, HD definition in some parts of it, and they can't make it any better than that. So it's like,
well, they would have to.
Films are worse, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the most of the Phantom Menace was shot on 35 millimeter, but for the scene where he's testing Anakin's blood at night outside of Shmi's house, her little hut or whatever. And the story goes is that all the crew members, the producer, Rick McCallum, everybody were saying, George, why do you want to film this particular scene with this digital camera as a test? It's at night. Like, why are you? And they said, are you sure you don't want us to cover everything in 35 as well, in case this doesn't hold up? And apparently, according to the account, his response was, no, people need to see this because this is as bad as it'll ever look.
Wow.
So they turned around and they output the whole thing to some sort of digital workflow, which that was pre 2K digital workflow because the effects were still, the cost-cutting measures, computers not being as powerful.
Mm.
And then the next two prequels were shot on bleeding edge digital cameras, which were 1080p flat out. So if you wanted to, you could take Phantom Menace's live action elements on 35 millimeter cans and redo all the special effects, and then you could actually have it in a kind of 4K format. But the other two, they're locked in. Like even the live action elements are 1080p.
Great.
So, yeah. Not that it's a big loss, but I mean, you know. So, speaking of bad films, I thought what we could do. Next section I want to talk about is you guys and your focus on the music of movies as well. But before we do that, I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to make them do a movie oubliette judgment lightning round here or anything like that. That's not what I'm doing. But what I would like to do is sort of just hold up some movies from my extensive physical media library, because we all have bad taste in certain areas. And we all, like Dan said, sometimes we unironically love certain bad films. So I just want to hold up some films, you know, real quick from my collection. We don't have to have big conversations about it, and just get both of your reactions to some of these movies that have come out of my collection. All right, so here's one. This is Withnail and I, the quirky comedy from England. I don't know if you guys have seen this.
Embarrassingly, I have not, and I know it's like a cornerstone of British culture, and I haven't seen it.
It is one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. I enjoyed it, but Melinda and I didn't know how we felt about it after we saw it. Dan, have you seen this?
I have actually started watching it, but I turned it off. Yeah. So I've watched first, I think 10, 15 minutes of it. And I do have a lot of friends that love that movie. So I know there is a popularity for it, but I have not watched the entire film.
I'll tell you, it was a sense of obligation for me to keep going past the 25-minute mark. And it never got less weird, but I kind of got in a groove with it a little bit.
Right.
I haven't watched it since, so that should tell you something, but I have watched it. It's in my collection. Okay. So there's that.
Okay.
All right. Ninja 3, The Domination. Have you seen this?
I haven't even seen Ninjas 1 and 2. If
you don't have to, because they don't connect. The only thing that's the same between the three movies is that they keep casting Sho Kosugi as a ninja, but he's not even the same guy movie to movie. It's just they just called it Ninja 3 because it was the one after the first two ninja films they did.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that, but I want to see it now.
Oh, dude.
That's
dude. This is one. I will almost owe Conrad an apology after you watch this, because I bet you're gonna say, we've got to do this for Movie Oubliette. We've got to do this movie. This film is crazy awesome, in a bad good way. Okay. I'm not even gonna spoil anything for you. You just gotta see it. Okay, so I've got this one. This is Sahara with Brooke Shields. This is a Canon film.
Oh wow. Yeah, you always got quality from Canon.
Oh yeah. No, you guys haven't seen this one?
No.
Okay, so you had lamb's blood over your door when this one came by. Good. Okay. All right. I have Life Force.
Oh.
Yes. Oh yes. I have seen that.
Okay.
This was quite formative for teenage boys in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a 4K disc that just came out. So, I mean,
really? They 4K'd it? Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Shout Factory or Scream Factory did. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Does it come with a box of Kleenex? Or...
Werewolf by Lunchtime. Thank you for the super chat. He says Red Dwarf will always be better on VHS, or is that just me? You know, I mean, it was shot on broadcast video cameras in a studio, which I love that look. So what do you guys think of the whole old school workflow of interior shot on video, exterior shot on film for TV?
Yeah, I don't know. I can appreciate it when they take the 16 millimeter exterior stuff and you know, scan it in high res and then try to make the studio videotape. They do that filmation thing where they try to. Yeah, it doesn't work for me. It feels wrong. So yeah, I'm with you there.
I settle in. I don't know. There's something about that aesthetic from that time period of television, especially Brit television, where I just kind of feel like, this is my lane. This is where I like to exist. You know, like whether I'm watching a comedy like Porridge or I'm watching a drama, you know, like a Doctor Who episode or something like that, where they use the same, you know, production workflow. I don't know. There's something about it I love. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say something really weird and funny. We have like 3 long-running soaps here, one of them's Emmerdale Farm. And I never forget, in the 90s, for a very brief period, they filmized it and broadcast it that way, and had things like, you know, long, slow tracking shots around people as they were talking.
Right.
And I was watching, thinking, this is so strange. And they got so many complaints about people saying it didn't feel real anymore. So they switched back to video.
See?
It was really interesting.
Wow.
It's a social experiment in terms of, for your kitchen sink dramas, it's got to be single camera, no flashbacks, don't cut from, because of its history as being a live, because our soaps used to be live.
Yeah.
And you can't cut from one character doing one thing to one character doing something else later. So you have to cut to a different set of characters in a different set. So there are all these single camera rules that you have to sort of stick to with soaps. Otherwise, people just can't.
Right.
I don't know. It's like putting on motion smoothing on movies. All of a sudden, it just looks like shit. We accept certain frame rates and certain aesthetics for certain types of storytelling, and it's really weird. The next generation's not going to give a crap.
No, but you're right. I can't get past the whole 60 frames a second thing. I don't like that. I don't like every show being converted to look like a soap opera with the live video camera look. I don't.
Yeah.
And they do that. They like demo TVs in these electronic stores, and they're showing like a Christopher Nolan movie, but they've got the 60 hertz or 60 frames per second thing dialed up on the TV with true motion, you know, features and stuff. And you're going, that's not the way that movie's supposed to look. And then, you know, my friends are like, I think it looks pretty good. And I'm like, you're, you know, heathen. You know, it's just, yeah. Okay. So this is, I've got a few more I want to get through. So Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
I have not seen it. I don't know anything about Elvira, and I would love to delve into that.
British Blu-ray. Just saying. It's you're gonna kill me when you watch it. You're gonna be like, Michael, I'm not saying this movie's great. I'm saying it's in my collection. That's what I'm saying. Keep that in mind. Okay. Here we go. Galaxina.
No. Again.
No.
I don't want to.
Is that Corman?
Yeah, I believe so. I think so. Crown International Pictures might not be Corman.
It feels like it should be.
Yeah, it's much like, I'm not, With Nail and I is a much better film than this. I'm not trying to, but you encounter it in kind of the same way, where you go, am I ever going to figure out what's going on, and will I get through it? You know, or will I just, you know. Very weird film. I think you guys have watched this one, Dreamscape.
We haven't done it on the show, but I
have not watched it. Yeah, that's that David Twohy.
No, I don't think so.
That's not that one. Timescape. I'm getting them mixed up.
Timescape. Right. Yeah, no. This is the Dennis Quaid, Kate Capshaw Inception movie from the 80s.
Yes,
where people are going into dreams. I really like it, or I remember it fondly, and I have the Arrow edition, the Scream Factory edition, and it's one that I want to thrust in front of Dan at some point.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Yeah, I think I can't wait to hear Dan's take on this, Conrad, because I cannot wait. Reclaimers Vintage is here. He sends a super chat. Has there been a suggested movie for the Oubliette that is off limits, or that you guys flat out refuse to do? Love you, my friends.
Yeah, many,
yeah.
Really?
I mean, we do genre films, so it has to be a genre film. So we've had numerous like action movies or dramas or comedies suggested. It's like, well, it needs to be either sci-fi, fantasy, or horror to be even, you know, in the oubliette. So
what is the we can get back to this in a minute. What is the lasting appeal of the sci-fi, fantasy, horror genre? Why is it this bottomless treasure trove of cinematic both greatness and awfulness that makes you guys want to, you know, solely focus on that for the content of Oubliette and never go into drama comedy?
I mean, me personally, I that's generally what I watch. I don't really watch a lot of drama, comedy, or non-genre films. Yeah, especially as an adult, I seem to only watch horror.
Right.
I don't and sci-fi. Bit of fantasy here and there. But I think it's the sort of escapism of, you know, going to another world or another reality or, you know, some other planet. That's what I enjoy.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. For me, I think it's two things. I think it's one, that it's so closely tied to the history of cinema itself as a magic trick, that, you know, the earliest films are sort of Lumiere brothers, and it was all about create again, the whole thing with being pre-recorded is you can create something that's just a complete fantasy that could never happen live on stage. So it's that, and it's also the fact that so often with these types of genre films, like, you know, everybody says about Star Trek, that you're able to explore social trends and social issues in a safe environment by sort of projecting it into some sort of fantasy world that you can then look at objectively as an outsider and think, hey, hang on, maybe racism is bad. You know, it's that kind of, we deal with so many of our nightmares and our dreams and our problems in these settings, and it's just fun. It's just fun stuff to watch.
I feel like genre films as well are always pushing the boundaries as well. So like, you know, thematically and that sort of in that respect, but also like musically or with special effects, or it's more interesting cinema in my opinion.
Yeah,
this is a perfect opportunity to bring up the Movie Oubliette YouTube channel. By the way, I've added the link to the Movie Oubliette YouTube channel in the description as well. Highly recommend anybody who's enjoying their podcast subscribe to their YouTube channel, because when they make videos, they are bar none heads and shoulders above anything I've ever done. They're great. That's right, everybody. I'm underselling myself and throwing you at another YouTube channel. Take it. You guys,
we've yet to break 1,000 subscribers.
But it's not because you deserve to not. You deserve to get there. Like you should be far beyond that by now. But I do find it very interesting that the Movie Oubliette podcast sticks to genre films. And this isn't me going, gotcha, watch this. No, but one of the most fascinating YouTube videos that is, I mean, all of your videos are high production quality, great, you know, all the music, all the effects, all the animation, it's all there. But there's one that's very special, and it's about the movie 1917.
Oh,
and that's not, I mean, it's an artfully done movie, but it's a war film. It's not a sci-fi fantasy horror film. Is that something where you feel like the YouTube channel opens itself up a little more to those possibilities, or was that just a special one-off for you?
Yeah, I guess that was me. And yeah, poor Dan didn't have I don't think you got any kind of chance.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to give credit entirely to Conrad on our YouTube channel. Like, I don't really do a lot on there, a few voiceovers here and there, maybe some jingles, but like generally it's 99% Conrad. So I think he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, with 1917, it's interesting because we just did an episode with Mikey Newman who's a video essayist I hugely admire, and that's coming out on Tuesday, talking about Waterworld, and Zoe Wells, his co-host from Deep Dive. And there's one particular video essay of his that does something that I always aspire to, and he talks very interestingly about how it, as well as being a video essay that examines the film that you're talking about in an interesting way and gets you to engage with it in the way that the artist did when they made it, it's also to set it in the time that you're talking about it. And in that case, it just so happened, like his video essay on the Iron Giant, he was working on it at the time that the Pulse nightclub shooting happened. And so this whole theme of weapons of war being used out of context turned into something else that he just couldn't help but comment on, and it became incredibly moving. I mean, that video essay just brought me to tears at the end of it. And 1917 was such a singular point of time for me and my mum, because we would go on these mum and son movie dates, and we just found ourselves stuck in a loop watching 1917 over and over again, and we'd never done that with a film before. And I wanted to sort of examine why. And then the pandemic hit, and it was the last movie we saw before the cinemas closed.
Right.
And there was something about that time that spoke to the same themes that 1917 was talking about, in terms of resilience and people trying to warn other people about an impending disaster that could be avoided, that was, possible to stop if everyone worked together. So yeah, I don't know, it just came together, and it was something that I wanted to do, that I was trying to do. That was my attempt to do movies with Mikey. I'm not sure whether
it's one of the best YouTube videos about a movie I've ever seen, and that's not hyperbole. Oh, wow. That's not exaggeration. I do think at this point you might want to consider an official Movie Oubliette tagline that says something to the effect of, "We do horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and 1917." Like that's what we do. Because I mean that video is really powerful. Remember, everyone, their video channel link is in the description. If you haven't seen that video, check out their channel. It's not just that video; their channel's awesome, but that video is stellar. Okay. I'm getting down to some of the ones here that I'm going to go through these real quick. All right, because I just want either want your approval or disapproval. So Disney's remake of The Count of Monte Cristo with Richard Harris and Jim Caviezel.
Wow, I haven't seen that either. That sounds amazing.
I haven't seen it.
I really enjoyed this film until the last 2 minutes, and I said for years, I think this is a reshoot. And then sure enough, on the Blu-ray, they have the original version of the scene as well. And it's like, that would have been so much better. But the actual movie, the 98% of this film is amazing. I thought it was really well done. So, yeah, I love this movie. Let's see.
This is just a watch list you're giving us now.
Well,
yeah, it is.
Cherry 2000?
Yes. I have seen that, and I have very fond memories of it, and that's one that I would like to show Dan as well.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it. No.
This is the kind of thing, Dan, that you would. I'm not saying you'd love it. I'm saying this is the kind of stuff you'd want to watch. You'd be like, you'd eat this up.
Okay.
I'm not even going to give you a premise statement. It's just maybe I should give you a premise. It's about a guy who's desperate to get his sex bot back. Is what it is. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to leave this one out because we've already done Cherry 2000. BMX Bandits. Anyone?
I haven't seen that. I know I should because I live in that country, but I have not seen it. Okay. Is that Kylie Minogue in that as well?
No, it's Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman. That's right. It's one of her first roles.
If it had been Kylie Minogue, I'd have had the ultra limited edition Blu-ray, whatever, which they didn't make because Kylie Minogue's not in it. So
they recently had the last episode of Neighbours ever, and Kylie Minogue shows up, and I watched it and I had no idea what was going on because I've never watched Neighbours. But I thought it was worth watching. Just it's the last episode.
I don't think anybody can really absorb 8,800 episodes of TV. I mean, we're talking 8,800 episodes or something like that is what Neighbors consists of now.
Yeah,
like
I know.
And because you were here, Dan, I did, even though this isn't a movie, I did coincidentally pull this out of the library. I have the Australian set of Kylie's Neighbors Volume 1.
Wow.
Of which there is no Volume 2 that ever came out, which is, unfortunate.
Okay.
But yeah, I got that. Okay, last two. Speaking of Kylie, I have this little gem, Street Fighter, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. That movie is horrible.
Terrible.
Horrible.
Terrible film.
Why would you have Jean-Claude Van Damme in a movie and not having do flying kicks in every scene? I don't get it. Why is he holding a gun?
I know.
Throw away the gun.
I didn't understand that either. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I feel like this movie may, even with all the movies you guys gleefully do, I feel like this movie may be beneath you guys. I don't know if this is really something appropriate for Movie Oubliette, but and regardless. Yeah. And finally, this is a film that I know Conrad loves, and I love it. Darkest Hour. I'm kidding, Conrad. I know you hate this movie. It's okay. You can hate it. It's fine. All opinions are good here. I just did that to gig Conrad, so it's really
okay. I think there's one scene in it that I don't believe, which is Winston Churchill just popping on the London Underground to get public opinion on his plan for Dunkirk. Right. And you think, no. Sorry, no.
I guess what they were probably going for was trying to find a way to cinematically encapsulate him being a leader of the people, like the people's leader. Yeah. And little ham-fisted in that one moment, but I really liked certain parts of it, and that I really just brought it up as a gag for Conrad. I wasn't going to get into a big conversation, but okay. Why is Barbarella on the floor? Anyway, all right. Music. Let's talk music. Let's talk about, you guys focus on, as part of every movie review, you delve into the score and or soundtrack of the film in question, which is something that a lot of other movie review channels do not do, probably because they don't have the training or the experience or the know-how to do it. But you guys make it a section of every review. I find that to be really special as somebody who collects a lot of scores and soundtracks and has going all the way back to my teenage years. Are both of you equally interested in movie scores?
I think Conrad more so. He owns a lot of them.
Yeah, there are two bookcases there with CDs that I've collected since as soon as the format started in the 90s. So
are you on 80s. Are you on Intrada and Film Score Monthly's like subscription lists and everything to get all the different
Conrad used to be on an online like a score swapping website where
that's where I met Simon Barber. So Simon Barber who does the very successful podcast where he interviews all kinds of
songwriters, musicians,
Soda Jerker on songwriting, and he's interviewed like Sir Paul McCartney. Like that podcast got big, bless him. I'm so proud of him. But we've known each other ever since we used to be on a forum back in the days when forums were a thing, and we used to swap scores on CDRs.
Oh, nice. That sometimes that was the only way to get them when they were out of print. I remember when I was in film school, everybody, not me, but everybody else in my film group, my film class, they were all clamoring for the score to JFK because it had gone out of print and nobody could find it. And it was, one they wanted to have in their collection. And like one guy had a copy. And so we found computer guys in our dormitory who knew how to burn CDs then, because that was like a new thing. And they started running off copies for like $5 a disc or whatever, because we were using their equipment. Wicked Person has a super chat. He says, wore my Movie Oubliette shirt to Walmart today. No one there looked terribly into genre film analysis, though.
Well,
but the way you both are knowledgeable about, even Dan, I know you say that you're not into movie scores, but you know how to craft music and you know how to do soundscapes, and so you can, every time you guys are talking about a movie, clearly you have paid attention to the music when you were watching it as well. Can you guys tell me three movies that you've both reviewed as Movie Oubliette where you found the score underwhelming?
Underwhelming. Yeah. I mean, plenty, right? I can't. I need a moment to think about it.
I think the one that we always remember is what is that medieval Lady Hawk?
Oh.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was underwhelming. I would say
it made an impression.
Plain wrong.
It's just horrible.
It's like an out of tune piano key. It's like ding. Like it's that. Yeah, Lady Hawk.
Lady Hawk, soft rock. That was not good. But I mean, underwhelming. I think there have been quite a few scores where we've said that it's just like, it's like the music you would expect, and nothing particularly interested us about it.
I remember you said Ewoks: The Battle for Endor did not have good music.
No.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Did that movie have anything good?
I mean, you guys said you liked the teak guy, the little fast guy.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah, he was quite fun. I would have liked a whole movie about him. But yeah, no, the music for that was, I mean, the trouble is, if you're trying to follow John Williams,
right,
that's a hard sell at the best of times. But the poor guy did not do a great job of that.
What is the kind of, do you guys, I mean, obviously, because of how you do your show, you have a wide range of tastes and interests and everything like that within cinema, but do either of you have a kind of score or even a kind of movie you prefer over others? Because I never really got to ask you the pat question of, can you name 5 favorite movies just off the top of your head? There's never an ultimate one, but can you name 5 individually?
Go for it.
I mean, I do pretty much all the movies I love are going into another world or going into a different reality. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is, I mean, it's a lot of many people's favorite movie. But you know, like I feel so like cliche naming all these movies. Like Amelie's a really favorite movie of mine. Run Lola Run, that German movie, is a big favorite of mine. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a big favorite of mine. I don't know. I just like going into other worlds, or like sort of hyper realism where we're not in normal day to day. Whereas Conrad has different taste.
Yeah, quite different. I mean, my favorite movies are real mishmash. I mean, probably my ultimate favorite, which we talked about on a Patreon exclusive minisode, is where we exchanged favorite movies. So I watched Eternal Sunshine for Dan, and he watched Ordinary People for me, which is the 1980 drama. Swept the board at the Oscars in 1980, but nobody remembers that because of Raging Bull.
Right.
And it's a family drama about the older son. It's a nuclear family that's kind of falling apart because the older son dies in a boating accident. And it focuses on the younger son. For some reason, that just resonates with me. And then at the other end of the scale, like, I mean, Star Wars has got to be there. Alien has got to be there. The Talented Mr. Ripley is a very important film for me, and 1917, of course. So yeah, I like dramas as well as and war movies, and as well as sci-fi, horror, and fantasy. And when it comes to dramas, then it's always sort of really messy family dramas where something terrible has happened. That seems to be my bag. I don't know why.
What scores do you tend to listen to the most, like on repeat, or you're listening to tracks from them a lot? I mean, we all have those albums and or scores in our rotation that just seem to come up a lot more than others. I was curious what you guys both listen to musically. It doesn't even have to be movie scores. It can be the type of music you listen to. I'd be curious to find out.
Yeah, I mean, I went through a stage of listening to a lot of scores. I do really like Danny Elfman for some reason. So the Batman score is one of my favorite scores of all time. It's just ridiculously good. Again, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. John Bryan is a huge favorite of mine as well. A lot of the movies I do tend to like aren't big blockbuster movies. They're not high budget movies. They're all kind of indie films. But generally in music, I do listen to a lot of like quite simple singer-songwriter music. So I'm a big fan of like Julian Baker, and like Lucy Dacus, and the other member of Boy Genius. I can't remember her name. But yeah, a lot of real simple music I tend to like, nothing too extravagant. And I do, because I do play a lot of synth, I do listen to a lot of synthy music as well. Generally instrumental.
Right. I want to apologize to you, Dan, because I did not mean to ride over you answering the question about your favorite films. What actually happened is I knocked my own headphones jack out right at that moment, and I just said something to try and get somebody to talk while I tried to fumble around because I literally couldn't hear what was going on for a second. Sorry about that. But yeah, so you also, Dan, from the conversations that I've heard you have in the various Movie Oubliette episodes, you're also very much a child of the 90s, and that's not a judgment call, but what I'm saying is you enjoy films like Johnny Mnemonic and Hackers and things like that. So does that also influence your music taste as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I mean, growing up with, grunge music and new metal and industrial metal, and that sort of stuff is definitely progressed on to adulthood. I mean, it's not like I'm listening to Limp Bizkit and Korn these days, but it's definitely influenced my musical taste, and I do tend to sort of veer more into sort of gritty, darker, sort of more melancholic music for sure.
Conrad, he's a 90s guy. He's got that angst. He's got that flannel wearing darkness.
Yeah. I mean, definitely living through all the goth era and the emo era, like that was my youth,
Yeah,
so
yeah. He steps out the door every day, Conrad, and wishes that he was the Crow. We can do a lightning round here. I'd love to do a lightning round of I pulled some soundtracks from my library. My library is not as extensive as Conrad's and probably not as big as yours, Dan. But sometimes I get so obsessed with niche that I start to believe that niche is worth pursuing, even as I try to trick myself into believing it's not just because it's niche. But then I need to remind myself that just because it's niche doesn't mean it's good. A lot of times I learn that too late, after I've already put my cash down on the barrelhead. Regardless, so as an example of that, even though this isn't a niche movie, it's rather a niche soundtrack to own, and I regretted my purchase, which is Rogue One.
I have that.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking it's not a very inspired score. It's actually literally a rushed score, because the person they wanted to do the movie, I guess, backed out or something, and they had to get him at the last minute or something like that. So yeah, I regret that one. I don't know.
Is it Michael Giacchino or John Powell?
It's Michael Giacchino.
Yeah. See, he's one of the few American composers who's still writing themes.
Yeah. I like his music.
Yeah, I do too. It's just there's nothing in this score it feels very repetitive when you listen to it track track to track. It doesn't flow. And so I found myself not listening to it as much as I would have thought. And so I kind of, don't get me wrong, it's not anything like, as much as I love John Williams, Force Awakens was a hatchet job disaster of a score. And yeah, but this kind of a, buyer's remorse on this one a little bit. Here's one from one of, I believe, Conrad's favored composers. I know Jerry Goldsmith is your favorite. Is that right, Conrad?
It is, yeah.
Okay. Now, what is it about Jerry Goldsmith that you love?
Well, for me, he comes out of the 80s tradition of grand symphonic scores for fantasy films, flights of fantasy. But for him, he was, while John was doing all the sweet, syrupy stuff like E.T. with Spielberg, Jerry Goldsmith was doing Gremlins with Joe Dante. And for that reason, I just love the guy. God rest him. He was always doing the sort of punky, weird, offbeat, darkly comedic stuff that had a really delicious twist to it. And yeah, I loved him for it.
Speaking of that, I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a minute. You guys have been doing these shows for several years now, so you've really gotten to know one another on a pop culture level. And usually when that happens, there are sort of like, they're not really inside jokes that occur in relationships like that, but there are, like with Tony and I on Analog Toys, like I know that Tony has certain favorite, Action Man figures, and he knows that I have this thing for Bespin Luke and all that kind of stuff. So Dan, for a fact when there's a movie that you guys are watching that has a Jerry Goldsmith score that Conrad's going to have a lot to say about that particular score. So Conrad, is there anything in reverse with Dan that you found out? Like, obviously, Dan has a proclivity for movies from the early 90s, like Johnny Mnemonic and Hackers, that have to do with computers and sci-fi in the future. But that could just be a broader taste. Is there anything like the Jerry Goldsmith thing with Dan that runs through the Movie Oubliette library?
I think it is sort of the 90s stuff that I tend to know that Dan's going to really chime with. And usually if I'm watching something from the 90s and I'm listening to the soundtrack and thinking, God, I hate it, I'm thinking Dan's going to love this.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Which is fine. It's great because it means I get to sort of sit back and listen to him talk about it in an authoritative and informed way, whereas I would just go, the noise, my ears.
Yeah. I mean, talking about other aspects of film, like there always tends to be, especially 80s films with kids as main protagonists that that Conrad always gravitates towards. And I don't know, I guess it was quite prevalent in the 80s, a lot of movies following kids going on adventures. But yeah, in the 90s, it's all about teenagers getting stabbed. And I guess that's what I grew up with.
Yeah. Yeah, you noticed that recently, didn't you? Because we did Descender, and you said it was nice to see a film from the 80s with adults in it.
That is true. I hadn't really thought about that, but you're right. The 90s dialed in hard on teen horror.
Yeah.
Really wow. Yeah. The 80s was more like horror befalls adults. It's like, oh, okay. Now I know that you've talked about this composer before on Movie Oubliette, but I have the soundtrack to High Road to China by John Barry. And while it is, he does a beautiful theme in the film. The theme, I think, gets repeated a little too often. I think he did this movie's score on like a weekend, like, when he was working on something else that he knew was going to be more successful. But it's a good listen. It's a good score. It's just you ever had one of those scores where it's a good score, there's just not enough of it, and yet somehow it still fills up a CD? That's kind of how
I feel that I feel like that for the original Halloween. Like, it's like, yes, we've heard this, and it keeps playing over and over again. And I know it's iconic, and it does make the movie way better, but it's a bit repetitive. I'm sorry, John Carpenter.
He does a theme, and then he just runs that. So like, there can never, I don't know how there's going to be, or how there could be. I know it's probably on CD, but Halloween, the expanded full score on a CD sound like? Because it would just be that piano. Oh, you have it?
I have it on vinyl, and it's tedious. You only need a single for that score, really. I mean, there are 4 or 5 different motifs.
Yeah, there are different versions and arrangements.
But I mean, when one of the motifs is just like a low piano going dum, da dum, dum, da dum. It's not real. Is that is a motif, I guess, but I mean, it's not great to listen to.
No,
I remember balking when somebody offhandedly told me, they said, "Hey, have you heard about the secondhand prices for the out of print Ghostbusters score?" And I went, "The soundtrack?" He goes, "No, the score." And I went, "They did an expanded CD of that movie's score?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, what is that, like 22 minutes long? Like there's so many songs in that movie that play over montages and stuff. Like the score, it's I believe it's Morricone or somebody, or Elmer Bernstein.
It's Elmer Bernstein. The interesting thing is, because he did write a full score for that movie. So what you hear on the album is what he intended, rather than all the songs. Yeah.
Well, now I feel like a moron. I should have gone out.
No, not at all. You weren't to know that. So it's quite interesting to listen to, because you get to hear, when they were playing that song called Magic or whatever, that montage, you hear what Elmer had in mind for it.
Oh, wow. So, okay. Yeah. That reminds me of the whole Legend thing. The Legend where they flip the scores.
Yeah. I love that stuff.
I wonder how Elmer felt about that.
Not great. He didn't come back for the sequel. That tells you something.
Well, true. See, everybody, you can always count on Conrad for that fast comeback. That's
exactly. Yeah.
So this is a kind of a soundtracky score, but I just wanted to bring it in here because people are like, "Why the hell would anybody own this?" I have the soundtrack to Career Opportunities, starring Jennifer Connelly and Frank Whaley. This is a really mediocre movie about a guy who gets locked into a Target at night with Jennifer Connelly. I don't know why I have this, but I've got it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Apparently it's out of print, and sorry,
I bet it is. I've never heard of it.
Yeah. That's sad.
I wouldn't mind being locked in a Target with Jennifer Connelly.
I wouldn't either. I mean, maybe that's why I don't even want to speculate at this point. Okay, so here I have a film score that I truly believe is Aliens, just orchestrated note for note. Clear and Present Danger.
Right.
He just repeated all of his own themes from Aliens. He just dropped them right into this movie, and I don't know why James Horner started doing that, but he did.
James Horner does that for everything. I just noticed Gloop Trekker in the comments saying he was listening to Aliens and realizing how much Star Trek 3 I noticed in there. I mean, James Horner had about 3 scores in him, bless him, and just kept sort of... But he did it well. I mean, I do love his scores. I have a lot of them, but he really only had sort of the Cocoon big band jazz thing, which he did for Batteries Not Included as well. And he had the Aliens military thing, which he did for Star Trek and the Jack Ryan movies. And then he had his sort of Sense of Wonder, lush stuff that he did for Avatar and Fern Gully and Land Before Time and Willow. He only had, and for all of them, he had the same theme for the bad guy, which was diddle-a-doo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every single score.
Every time.
Bless him.
Yeah. I mean, I find that's what happens with scoring and composers anyway, because often they're given next to no time at all to spit out a score within 7 days or something. So they're just gonna do what they know works, and it may be a ripoff of a previous score, but they don't have much time, and it's actually pretty phenomenal that they can score a whole movie.
Right.
How that much time as well.
I brought this one for you, Dan. This is the score to Speed.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen that since I was a teenager. I need to watch that again.
I would love to hear adult Dan's take on this 90s super hit. I just
the
brought
Mark
this.
Mancina score is wonderful. That cue where they're jumping the gap is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good score. It's an incredible score. I brought this up just out of sheer comedy because I didn't even remember I had this. Don't even know why. It has a Hit Savers Platinum sticker on it, so maybe it was on sale and I was poor. I have the soundtrack to Serendipity. I don't know why.
Okay.
It's weirder than having career opportunities, I think. And then finally, I'm just going to bring these out in a lightning round. Conrad, I know, and Dan, I know this is not a good score. I don't even like it, so I don't know why I have this disc. I have the Eric Serra soundtrack to GoldenEye.
Oh,
it's so bad. Like, it's not. I knew that, so I don't know why I have this CD. Like, that's the whole thing. It's not like I thought the music was good in the movie, like Rogue One, and then I listened to it. No, I don't even know why I have this CD. I think
I've never CD-ROM content.
No,
I've never seen GoldenEye. I've seen maybe 2 or 3 Bond movies, and that's not one of them.
Yeah,
GoldenEye is probably one of Brosnan's best.
I would say
I
it's
just
his best,
wish. I wish somebody else had scored it. Anyone.
Yeah, Eric Serra just whiffed on this one. Like, Bond is finally back after a half-decade long legal battle, and in the first action scene, they have this airplane, stunt, and he saves the airplane and himself. And Eric Serra's just like asleep, the conductor. Like, he's not even he's not scoring anything. So you just hear the Cessna go, and what a waste of a score.
And David Arnold was right there. He was doing like a concept album. He was doing remixes with the propeller heads. He was practically just waving at the broccolis going, and they just ignored him for a movie, but then they came to their senses and brilliance followed.
I think this movie, aside from the Tina Turner, you okay?
I'm fine. My umbrella fell down.
I think this movie should be rescored. I think they should pull a Legend, and I think they should rescore this movie to give you an alternate option.
Start that online petition now.
I will. I have Dark City.
That's a good score.
I love that movie. I can't remember the score, but
if there ever was a Dan movie, it's got to be Dark City.
Yeah, definitely.
Great movie, though. Great movie. I don't know why I have this. I've got the score, or no, this is the soundtrack. I have the soundtrack to Kill Bill.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Tarantino, but it's kind of getting a little bit recycled now. I feel I haven't seen his recent movies. I brought
this one up because you guys mentioned this composer recently. I can't remember which episode I was listening to, but you mentioned George Fenton, and I have this score to Memphis Belle, which is not a bad score, actually. It's actually quite good. And then finally, my guiltiest of guilty pleasures, the expanded 3 CD set for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Right.
Wow.
I love this score. It's so good.
But do you have a 3 CD set of Waterworld?
No, but I've already got 3 different movie discs for it. I know, right? Because I haven't seen that movie since it was on VHS. And then I ended up, within 2 weeks, I ended up with the 4K and the Arrow UK Blu-ray to get the Ulysses cut so that I could watch. And I'm like, what? Huh? And I haven't even watched either of them yet.
I don't know why, but the Robin Hood has been coming up a lot recently. It came up in one of the panels with the movie toy tie-ins. We talked about it in our recent episode with Waterworld. I don't know why. Robin Hood.
Its renaissance is coming. That movie's going to get its day. Like, it was the second highest grossing film of 1991, so it didn't do poorly. But I'm saying that, like, it's got derided after that for a long time. But its day will come, Dan. Its day will come. So I know that we're at 90, just at 90 minutes, and I don't want to keep you guys forever. I know, Conrad, you've got a window to fix, and Dan, you're just getting your day started. But I did want to ask you guys as kind of a sort of a final overarching topic is where do you see movies today? I don't mean literally where. I mean, where do you see film and filmmaking today? Like, where do you see it as far as versus the last 25, 30 years? Melinda and I often talk about how we feel like 1988 to 1992, 93 had this perfect balance between screenwriting and their advancements in visuals, where they were balanced, where it was kind of like, before it was, we don't have enough technology, so we're going to really script and try and do some sleight of hand and some dodgy, process screens. But by 88 to 92, you had this balance where it was, things like T2 and stuff like that, where they were still having to put the effort into the script. And so now we're in this sort of digital vomit world. That's my take on it. But I was wondering what you guys think as the real film experts in genre filmmaking of where we are, with films, where films are at this point versus back when.
Trying to go first, Dan.
I don't know. I think I am a little bit more inclined to like new movies. Whereas I think, Conrad, you're a bit more critical. Like recently I watched a movie called Malignant, which, Conrad, I think you walked out of in the cinema, and a lot of people hate. And I especially with horror, I find there's a huge just boom of like new ideas and sort of lower budget movies doing interesting things and taking risks. But then in terms of blockbusters, I hate them. I just modern blockbusters are just the worst for me. Like all the Marvel, Disney garbage that's coming out, these seem like products to me. These don't seem like actual works of art. They're just, how do we get people to pay us money as quickly as possible, but it doesn't matter about the end result. And that's concerning. But in terms of sort of more indie films, but it only seems to be horror as well. There's no other genre that is getting these kind of mid to low budgets and making anything good. I don't know. That's just my take.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I mean, one thing that I find interesting on our episodes, I always do research to sort of set the context of the movie we're talking about in terms of the box office, on what was in the top 10 at the box office then. And you look back at the chart from sort of the mid 80s or the 90s, and there are dramas, comedies, rom-coms, and
Thrillers.
you might have thrillers, just like films with adults in them, not in spandex, not against green screen puke for 3.5 hours. And now you look at the charts for any given year since Marvel kicked off, and it's just Marvel and a few dribbles of DC knocking around the bottom, and it's all the same movie. And I just find, I just think it's sad. I just wish we had more variety, especially when you look at the multiplexes where I have an all-you-can-eat card, so I can go as many times as I like, but it's all the same movie, and I get bored. I fall asleep in them because I just cannot connect to the characters on screen. But on the flip side, on the streaming services and on the low budget end, because digital filmmaking is so much more cost effective, and because you can achieve, with a bit of ingenuity and some CG, you can achieve on a low budget some really interesting mind-bending stuff. There's a lot of really interesting stuff to watch there, and also I think there are a lot of interesting dramas happening as well.
True.
I just think, like, this year, I think one of the ultimates, and Kermode has pointed this out, is that you've got Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness made for $200 million or whatever, and then you've got Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes.
One of them is a masterpiece, and one of them is a cynical corporate piece of shit.
Yeah. I have all the Marvel movies on hard media up through, I think, the Eternals of all things, just because I didn't see it in cinema. But with that Multiverse one, I stopped. But I have Everything All at Once on pre-order for 4K, or it should be shipping through Amazon right now. I think is it's on its way. So, yeah, I know what you mean. The last movie that might be a great way to kind of end the show is this interview is, what were the last movies the last two movies either of you watched?
In the cinema, or just
or yeah,
in general?
last two modern films you watched.
Right. Okay, well, I'm just back from the cinema after watching Brad Pitt's Bullet Train, and that's trying to be like Guy Ritchie stroke Tarantino, and it's throwaway nonsense, but actually I found it quite enjoyable. It was funny and irreverent, but I'll forget it next week.
Sure.
And prior to that, last night on streaming I watched Ron Howard's movie about the rescue of the kids that were trapped in the cave in Thailand.
Oh yeah.
13 Lives, and that is a beautiful, beautiful movie about the very best in the human spirit, and I highly recommend people watch it. And even if you know the outcome of what happened, just like Apollo 13, he still manages it to make it a nail biter without making it contrived and saccharine and chest thumping. Sure. It's about a bunch of understated guys just doing what needed to be done to save lives, and it's it just makes you feel good to watch something like that and think, hey, humans aren't all bad.
Right.
So that was me.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I watched Bullet Train as well 2 nights ago at our local drive-in, because we have them in Australia. I liked it. I know it's silly, it's completely stupid, and like how much did they pay those cameo actors? Like, I mean, these are big name actors cameoing for like 2 seconds. It's insane. But yeah, it was 100% just trying to do the Guy Ritchie, like Robert Rodriguez, Tarantino, like, oh, this is ultra violent, but we're funny, and here's a flashback, and here's some characters, and we'll kill them immediately. I mean, it was fun. I did also watch the new Thor movie, which was awful. Oh my! I've never not laughed so much in a movie. It's just like
Taika Waititi movie.
I'm just gobsmacked at how terrible it was, and how every single line was trying to be a joke that wasn't funny. Right. And I mean, the effects look great. So CGI has, it's looking good. Nothing else. And it's like what you said, Michael. There's just not enough focus on script and screenwriting, and all the focus, all the money goes into CGI. Yeah, which is, it looks great, I guess, but it's not memorable in terms of an experience. So yeah, I don't know. Even though I bag on all the Marvel movies, I still watch them. I'm still watching them. I don't know why. I guess I'm just roped into the whole franchise void.
I watched them too. I mean, I saw Multiverse of Madness in the theater, but I've not really, like I said, rushed out to get it on physical media.
I mean, I watched the Eternals at the movies, and that was rough.
You lived to tell the tale. Yeah, the last 3 films I saw they're not like literally last week as far as their age, but they're the last 3 modern films I've seen within the last 2 weeks on streaming. I saw The Lost City, which was like, why did they even make this?
I saw that too. Yeah.
Formula cardboard garbage. It felt like it was made in a green closet. Like it was like, this movie, I don't even know why people made it. Like, I don't even know why.
The best part of that movie was Brad Pitt, and he's in it for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. So you were questioning the cameos. There's a bit of a favor swap over between those 2 movies.
Oh, is there?
Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah.
So
there is.
There is. They called in favors, and there's a bit of a switcheroo between the casts of those 2 movies. But one of them is entertaining, and the other one, the trailer is entertaining.
Right.
But none of the jokes that are in the trailer are in the movie.
Oh,
yeah, this
so
is
like,
why I never watch trailers. I just, it's not worth it.
yeah.
You either get either the whole movie spoiled or all the jokes spoiled. So
yeah, and the trailers are now, they're not just what we filmed for the movie. It's like, let's film stuff for a trailer while we're filming the movie, and it's like,
yeah, exactly.
and that's how you get the Rogue One marketing, which got me really excited. And then I saw the movie and I didn't hate it, but I was like, this is not the film I was promised. So thanks a lot. The other two films I saw recently were The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, which felt like it was written by a 12-year-old who had one joke and played it for 90 minutes over and over and over again. And then the most recent thing I saw was Last Night in Soho.
Yes.
Yeah, which of the three films, I thought it was the strongest one. I mean, at least it had some artistry to it. It had some, the filmmaker clearly had a vision of how they wanted to do the movie. Which was a nice change of pace. But yeah, I felt like I was tripping balls, but it was, it's a good movie overall.
Yeah. I mean, I did watch a movie that I did enjoy recently that Conrad, you recommended it that back in 2020 was Spontaneous. I watched that finally.
Oh, you watched it?
That's about the kids that blow up. It was a really, really good movie, really heartwarming, but I was completely anxious the entire film. Who's going to blow up next?
April agrees with you, Dan, about Thor: Love and Thunder. She says 100% agree with Dan. I've also never laughed so much.
Yeah. Disappointing.
We have a super chat from our friend Matthew Kearns at Matt Movie 611. He says sci-fi, even bad, is always a good genre because the films always have at least one interesting idea in them. Have you seen Galaxina? All right, Matt, you got to go see Galaxina and then tell me what the interesting idea is.
There's a challenge.
Oh, man. Well, with that, I don't want to keep you both any longer than has already transpired. So is there anything that I haven't asked you guys that you would like to mention, talk about, or say to the audience? Or because I don't always ask all the right questions.
I don't know.
Great. I feel accomplished.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then tell everybody where they can find you, because and tell everybody just once again about your podcast and your YouTube channel and what it's about and where they can find you in your own words, not mine.
Yeah. So we're available everywhere as Movie Oubliette. I always spell it just in case. OUBLIETTE. It's a place you put things to forget about them, as Hoggle said in Labyrinth, and it's where we drag films that either bombed when they came out or people have forgotten about them since, and we re-examine them to see whether they deserve more love or whether they should stay down there. And it's always sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. It's mostly of the 80s and the 90s, but we have delved further back into history and we've done more recent stuff in the noughts. And the tens as well. And our next episode, dropping on Tuesday, is with Mikey Newman and Zoe Wells of Film Joy, talking about Kevin Costner's Waterworld. And it's one of the most hilarious episodes we've ever done.
I cannot wait.
That's good.
Really enjoyed it. And an exclusive for you, our next episode is going to be with Amalgamated Dynamics special effects wizard Tom Woodruff Jr. And he has chosen the film, and the film is The Thing with Two Heads, the blaxploitation movie from 1972. And I watched it today and started making notes, and we are going to have a very interesting conversation about that movie.
Well, I can't wait for both of those, especially the Waterworld thing, which means I got to hurry up and watch my Ulysses cut before your episode drops. Oh man. Well, Dan, anything to add to that?
No, that's it. Yeah, we're Movie Oubliette everywhere.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both for taking the time. I know you're both in totally different time zones. So for you guys to come and do this really is a pleasure. It's always great talking with you guys, but especially being able to do this live and have everyone else get to know you at the same time. For everybody listening, the links to both their main website, where you can get all their information about their podcast and all the episodes, and then the link to their YouTube channel, which I highly recommend subscribing to, is in the description of this video. And I just want to thank you guys again for being here. It's always fun talking with you both.
Thank you for asking us.
Thanks so much. Thanks for asking us. And also, we have to get you back on the pod very soon.
Well, there's no pressure there. Anything that canon does happen is fine. So I do keep in mind, though, that Melinda got to go into the Oubliette last time, which I was like, oh, but yeah, no, I'm half joking about that. The funniest jokes are the ones where a little bit of it is true, and so my jealousy is a little true. All right. Well, everybody, we hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thanks for joining us on this live stream. We had a nice turnout, and this live stream is going to stay live for the next few weeks so that it gets into people's subscription feeds. If you hear that siren, it's not people coming to get me. It's because we're right next to a road. And thanks, cops, for doing that right at the end. All right, everyone. We will see you soon. Thank you, Dan and Conrad, for being here. You guys stay in the back room right afterwards. I just want to say thanks and goodbye. Everyone, have a great rest of your Saturday or Sunday. Bye, everyone.